Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. I gotta put my camera over here. Yeah. So, I got the best dad in the world. I got the best brother in the world. And for all of you guys, doesn't matter who you are, if you really understand that people that are put in your lives for a specific reason, they're all the best things for you because whatever it is, it's a family traits that if you can't accept, then uh, it's built specifically to trigger you to you can overcome whatever. So it's going to be story time. I got so many stories, so many fond memories, and I wouldn't have the perspective that I do. And the only reason I could say this, I don't have this perspective that I do unless I would have quit my job in 2021 and I wouldn't have the appreciation for my dad that I do. So, dad's in the hospital right now, and I have some cousins that are going to fly in next weekend to go take him out. He's going to be in a nursing facility because he's got a catheter in. And I just jokingly said, well, I should take him to the strip club because, everyone knows that my dad likes quote unquote fat women, but that's not really a good adjective to use. Dad likes women that you can pick up on radar from about 500 miles away. The guy, I think he just told me her name. I just talked to him on the phone. I think her, like Bo Berry or something, because there's people that make money by just getting as big as they can, because there's guys out there that just want to see and are sexually aroused by the biggest women on the planet. And so me living with dad, I've been in meetings like within the last couple of years. Dad was in his office watching something, and the sounds coming out of there is bleeding off, and so I have to mute my audio because I'd be like, and the images that come into your mind, because I already know what he's watching. It's somebody sitting next to a fridge with the fridge door open, and she's like, stuff in her mouth, or somebody's getting sat on and smothered. It's like so good. I have, and you don't look at it from a certain perspective until you can appreciate somebody and fall in love with them, and then you really fall in love with yourself, because you realize that, and my dad is one of the most spiritual people. For one thing, he's always been forced to surrender to his environment because they called it a learning disability, because he was always caught up in his head so much, and he was always overthinking so much stuff that he couldn't listen to what other people were saying, and he would misunderstand people. And so it was really hard for him to interact. And so when I was growing up, when I was a kid, he was really hard on himself. I mean, he's still hard on himself, but he's starting to work his way out of it, trying to talk him through it. So hard on himself because of that, because he had to depend on everybody. Couldn't do anything for himself. Never, he doesn't cook, he doesn't clean, he doesn't do any of those things for himself. And he is specifically built that way so that the people around him would have to take care of him and master themselves. And just the act of taking care of my dad brought so many people together and made my grandma one of the most beautiful, grounded people you'll ever meet. She's born in 1903, and she went through the Spanish flu and almost died. She had an out-of-body experience, and I think it was 1916, if I remember. Not sure what year, but she was young. She was only 12, 13 years old, when Spanish flu came out. And So I remember Dad talks about this when she died in '94, and she was a very spiritual, loving person. She had to be. The kids that grew up in that household, my dad was the fourth. She had 5 kids, and so she had 3 older kids born in 30, 31, 32, and Dad is born in 44. So the 2 older brothers, Tom and Bruce, were born in 30 and 32, but my Aunt Sid, her and Grandma kind of took over, take care of Dad until he met Mom. And then they were so happy because there was somebody to take care of Bailey Curtis. But, the things that you have to overcome and look at from a higher perspective and say that all those experiences, all those unique experiences are the spice of life. You don't want to not have those experiences. I remember we were going to, I bought a telescope in, it was like 2006 or 2007. So I took Dad with me because Dad was always interested in astronomy. And we went back to Kansas to go pick it up. It was from Starmaster. What was his name? Rick Starmaster. Was Starmaster his last name? Everyone called him Rick Starmaster. He doesn't make telescopes anymore. He retired. But he had somebody that was he was a friend of his that needed to sell it. He had bought one from him. It was a 12.5-inch Dob. And I headed over to Kansas to pick up the telescope and drive a Suburban. And we were going, it was right before we were picking it up, and it was some BFE town in Kansas. I can't remember where it was. It was on the eastern side of the state because we had to go all the way almost to the Missouri border to go pick it up. And stopped at a gas station, and I started filling up, and Dad was so excited to go pick this telescope, and some guy was filling up his tank, and Dad walked over to him and just started chatting. Hey, my son's getting ready to buy a brand new telescope. And he could tell this guy just was like, what's going on here? And he could tell the guy was getting a little nervous. And so after Dad got back in the car, I went over, hey, Dad, it's time to go. Got him in the car, and I was a little bit, I wasn't, I kind of got after him a little bit because at the time, I thought it was a negative thing for Dad to be doing that. But if you're triggering somebody and they're nervous, you're actually doing them a favor because they're having to get over something that they shouldn't have a problem with. You shouldn't be nervous or triggered by anything. Everybody's unique. Yeah. And that experience of just watching Dad do that, those are memories that I can never replace. The key is to keep making those kind of memories. My favorite memories growing up were getting the Curtises together because every single one, they were crazy. Wanted to take over the world. Tom was a fighter pilot. Bruce was in the logging industry, just flying all over the place. And all those kids, and Bruce's kids, were just as crazy as he was, and competitive, fighting. But they always loved each other. And it just, dancing, hooting, hollering. When Grandpa died, everyone stole all the street signs in town. And when Grandma died, we climbed over town, broke into the local pool. And, you don't appreciate those things until you understand that the people that are, like I said, the people that are put in your lives are put in for a specific reason. And a lot of times people get hard on themselves and think negatively about some of those experiences, but those are the spice of life. Where would we be without those experiences? And if everybody liked the same kind of girl, then how boring would that be? Or if everybody liked the same kind of boy, or if everybody liked, yeah. And I'm unique in my own self. And this is a little bit of a admission on my channel. And it's why I haven't in the past uh, every girl that's ever showed an interest in me, I would show an interest in, because I generally love to hear what kind of person you are, and what you're interested in and what you like to do. So it doesn't, I'm not particular, which means if you love everybody, then, you can get yourself involved with any one person, but they have to be comfortable with me loving everybody at the same time. And that doesn't mean sex, but you have to be a really secure person to be around somebody like that, right? And not get insecure, because if you understand people at a very deep emotional level, everybody's just trying, they don't understand that all they're doing is, the journey in life is just about accepting yourself. And once you can fully accept yourself, stop judging yourself negatively for whatever you want to do or whatever you want to go, life is an adventure, and it should be an adventure. If you're just going to a job every day that you hate, then you're dying. If you don't like what you're doing, then stop doing it. And so there's always a dichotomy in everything. You want to be able to heal the mind, so that people stop looking at each other negatively. But at the same time, if all you're doing is just trying to ground out people's, negativity, that's not fun either. So why would you want that job? That's why seek ye not material possessions in this world. Seek ye first the kingdom, and then eventually you'll be living in heaven. And then you can share it with the rest of the world, because you'll see everything from a higher perspective, and everybody is just trying to get over themselves. So they stop trying to sell themselves, because in order to sell yourself, you have to put on a mask. Try and portray an image to say that you have some kind of value that somebody else doesn't, that needs. And the reality is we don't. All you have to do is be comfortable with yourself and be a jackass like everybody else. So my own personal goals have always been around trying to create some kind of structure where people just create together, use their imagination, and structure it so that no one person has control over another. Because anytime you have that, it turns toxic. Right? If you give one person power over another, you got to be able to have people that can be crazy as shit with one another and not mind it. The last thing you want to do, what's your picture of heaven? The last thing we want is to, just be walking around, We want to be dancing, shooting up the neighborhood, not shooting up the neighborhood, but you know what I mean. Pranks that don't go too far. So here's a good story of a prank. This is one of my favorite prank stories, and this was legendary. We had a family reunion, probably 5 years ago. And my cousins, I think maybe I talked about it on this channel once. And we went to Orfino. I think we were there for a funeral. I think but this was for Bruce's funeral. Yeah, we were burying Bruce's ashes, I think. And was it Bruce's ashes or was it Rose's ashes? I can't remember. I'd have to ask. Suzanne will know. If you're watching this video, Suzanne. So Bruce got 5 kids, and it was 2v1 and a wife. Suzanne and Barbara, they're always playing pranks each other growing up, and they knew that David didn't like spiders, so Suzanne and Barbara went in there and put spiders in his bed, fake spiders, and then did some other stuff in his hotel room. And then there was a retaliation, and the retaliation was, I can't remember what the retaliation was, but they were getting after each other, and right before they were leaving, and right before they left, Susanna Barbara went into David's, I think they had a Durango, a Dodge Durango, and they went in there and they put glitter inside the vent, the air conditioning vent. It was hot. It was a hot summer day. It's like almost 100 degrees. And so they knew he was going to turn on the air conditioning. And Susanna Barbara just booked out of town, hauling ass out of town, because they knew as soon as David got in the car, he was going to be so pissed. And as soon as David and Kim got in the car and turned that thing off, it turned that car on to leave Orfino. It just poof, and all this glitter covered him from head to toe. And then so David is pissed. He's just like, I'm going to run. I'm going to go kill him. And so he's going like 110 miles an hour out of Orfino. And it's just a windy road next to the Clearwater River heading into Lewiston, Idaho. And gets pulled over. And obviously and cops cruise that because it's a dangerous road. People fly off the highway and drop into the river all the time. There's been so many logging trucks that have come off of that road into that river because it follows the river. And this is Kim telling me the story because Kim tells it the best way. And as soon as the cop comes up to the window, the first thing he sees is two people just completely covered, the whole inside of this car covered in glitter, and glitter is impossible to get out, man. I mean, if you get on your skin, if you got anything stuck to you, if you have your skin's oily, it takes forever to get that stuff out. And it's so small. And, instead of saying, let me see your license and registration, he just looked at him and goes, what happened to you guys? You look at him like, what the hell's going on here? And so he heard the story, and then he didn't give him a ticket. He just told slow down. Don't speed. Just do what you got to do to get home. Priceless. But then, that winter, Suzanne, stored her trailer at their house. So it was always, how can we get each other, but always loving one another. And that love, there is no doubt in my mind that the love in that family could have never been that strong if it wasn't for my grandma and the way that she had to deal with Albert B. Curtis, her husband. Somebody just wanted to take over the world. He ran for senator in state of Idaho, lost. But he helped, it was back in the 20s, 30s when we were building this country after World War I, and a lot of forestry fires in northern Idaho. But he was just a rough and tumbling, hard-nosed businessman, and the kids that she raised and was able to unite that family, she's amazing. That woman, and they wouldn't have been what they were if they weren't individually the way they were. And if it wasn't for my dad, it wouldn't have brought my Aunt Sid and my grandma together, and the way that the way that I grew up with those family. I can't think of one negative thing in the whole series of events in my entire life that I regret in any way. And whether it's my ex-wife or any girl I've interacted with or any guy, you always gotta think of it, we're all unique, and the pranks and stupid shit that we do to one another are the spice of life. Why would you want it to be any different? So the latest discussion is, how are we going to get Billy Curtis in front of a giant woman in Seattle in a week? If you guys are watching this channel and you have some inside information on how to get that done, please send me a link. So, yeah. I have there's so many stories. I have so many favorite stories. I'll tell one more story before I'm going to let you guys go. But for that reason, when I was growing up, And I wouldn't have the appreciation for my dad if I hadn't quit my job in 2021. Because when you're working a job, and I didn't necessarily dislike the work, I hated the atmosphere that I was in, where people had to position themselves to make more money. And so people kind of have to put on a mask, and then people start thinking negatively about each other because they're trying to control one another. Because you're trying to control this person because you're not happy with what they're doing, when more than likely almost everybody in that atmosphere is trying to ground out negative opinions of each other that are grounded in negative opinions about themselves, and then trying to rate each other to breach a position that is just totally nonsensical and not real, instead of valuing each other for how unique everyone is and getting rid of that bullshit. All right? Anyway, so back to so I quit my job in 2021, and I saw it wasn't because I didn't like to work. It was just that, right? That culture of and I witnessed it, resulting in people getting hurt physically because it blows up. It's energetic, and it explodes. And it's just because of the pursuit of materialism. That's all it is. And identifying with something out there that's isn't who you are. And so I witnessed, the people that I loved go through hell, skin grafts, almost dying. It wasn't fun to watch. It's terrible. And so I just didn't want to be there anymore, because it didn't get any better. People just start pointing fingers at one another when something like that happens. Nobody understands that, when we get involved in something like that, something that happens to us, it's our thing, right? It's not anybody else's fault. It's our perspective and the way that we're interacting with one another. And if we feel forced to get into positions of control, to make more money, it's just, ugh. So, yuck. I mean, but even that in and of itself has some spice to it, right? It's like, God, the way that we're all killing ourselves, trying to do things that just don't make sense. And rating our experiences based on some preconceived notion of nothing. It's stupid. Yeah. Why does the king need the Joker? Because the Joker makes him laugh. And there's no other reason, because the king's his life sucks. He's got everybody that's just hanging on him hand and foot, and he needs a Joker around to make him happy. So I wouldn't have the appreciation for my dad if I wouldn't have been able to spend that much time with him. And, because you have to get over your own guilt of what you think he might have done in your past. And then you see how everybody else is trying to do the same thing. Because when my dad woke up from the hospital, he's like, and he was starting to get his wits about him. He's like, I'm sorry, Bugs, I'm not going to make you angry anymore. And I told him, I said, Dad, if you did or didn't, I love you either way. Why would you want to just be you? Tell me what you want, and I'll get it for you. If you want to learn something new, I'll help you. Yeah. It's like, yeah. Hard to explain unless you... What's that? Okay. We're going to take a break here. I'm going to go have a hamburger. We'll continue in a minute. My brother brought me a hamburger, so that was nice of him. Picked up some cat food for me so I didn't have to run into town today. That was pretty sweet. Where was I at? I had to watch the ending of the video because I've been gone for like an hour. But learning something new. The desire to adventure and learn something new. And you have to want to do it. You can't force anybody to do it. Variety is the spice of life. And that's the point of this broadcast, is because, I'm getting on here because, none of us all want to be the same. We don't want to. It always reminds me of the ending of A Wrinkle in Time. If you guys have ever read that book or watched the movie, where they go to that world where everybody's living in the same house and they come out at the same time every morning. It's like, oh my God. Track housing. We don't want to live in track housing. We want to be, imagine what kind of world we'd be living in if we were all unlocking our creative potential. Everybody would be living in something different, something unique that they would help, and the community could help them design something specifically for them. Not something absurd, because, if it's recreational, why can't we build something recreational? Oh, my screen went blank. It's this monitor. I don't know what it looked like for you guys, but I had an idea the other day. Wouldn't it be cool? I would love to build a big community center, like a big, and I don't know if, I'm sure there's cities that have these, but like a big skyscraper like building that has super good insulation, because the last thing you want to, that's why people get out of apartments, because you don't want to be able to hear your neighbors. So you want flats with privacy, soundproofed, and then probably like maybe 5 or 6 levels at the base level that are restaurants, recreation, community areas where you can meet people. And then it would also attract other places to come in, eat. You could even open up the bottom for vendors. People could come bring in food trucks, or, you could have wine tasting events. Use your imagination. You could literally do anything like that. I would love to live in a place like that, where you don't have as much to take care of, because that's the advantage of living in a small apartment. You don't have a piece of property to take care of. The world is big. There's so much to experience. Why would you want to me, I never understood trying to take care of a big piece of property, because you get married to it. And it doesn't allow you to experience enough of the other world. There's so much. You can't own the whole world. Why would you want to? We all own it together. So ideally, you want to be able to experience it all together. And you don't even need a place to lay down. I'm always going to be laying down somewhere different, where I want to be anyway. So just something to think about for you guys. Heaven truly is a place internally, and then you'll see, and once you find a place, heaven in your heart, then you'll see that heaven's all around you as well. You just have to look at it from the right perspective. Love you guys. Have a beautiful day. I'm not going to bore you with any more. I just wanted to get that out there. So many awesome stories, and I'm sure you guys have stories that I would love to hear. Catch you on the next one. Bye.